Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. You know what I like learning about? Mythology. Especially Greek and Egyptian mythology. At a young age, I remember my mom gave me books filled with Greek heroes and myths, or modern day interpretations of them. As I got older, I loved learning more about the myths and their significance to the cultures that practiced them. It got me thinking about my faith. We have some incredible stories of our own. On this channel, we're going to dive into some of my favorite stories from scripture. Whether you're Christian or just curious, I hope you enjoy. Being that it's Women's History Month, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about one of my favorite female figures. So without further ado, who the heck is Ruth? Long ago, there lived a happy couple and their 2 sons in the city of Bethlehem. But one day, famine struck. Naomi, her husband, and her children fled the city. They journeyed far and wide searching for food. Along their journey, Naomi's husband passed away. Now a single parent, Naomi decided to settle where they were currently residing, the land of Moab, better known as modern-day Jordan. While they were there, Naomi's sons married 2 Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth. Things were starting to look up, but it didn't last for long. Naomi's sons soon passed away, leaving her with no husband, no children, and now no grandchildren. So eventually, Naomi decides to return home to Bethlehem. When her daughters-in-law leave to follow her, Naomi tells them to turn back. To paraphrase chapter 1 verses 11 to 13, Naomi tells her daughters-in-law, "Ladies, go home. Your husbands are dead. You have no more affiliation with me. Don't waste your lives following an elderly woman. I'm too old to marry again and I can't provide for you." Orpah weeps, kisses her mother-in-law goodbye, and returns home. But Ruth stays. Since marrying Naomi's son, she has come to believe in God. Ruth tells Naomi that she will follow her wherever she goes, and stay wherever she stays. So the 2 of them set out to Bethlehem, and when they get there, man, everyone can't seem to stop talking about them. The early Israelites weren't very kind to widows or foreigners. A widow, especially one without children, was considered a disgrace. They believed bad deeds resulted in punishments from God, such as sickness, physical ailments, loss of finances, or even death. Ruth wasn't just a widow, she was also a Moabite. The Moabites were polytheistic, and the Israelites didn't want to be associated with them. So, naturally, the 2 women were outcasts. And being that they were women, which weren't really in the working class back then, they also were unable to provide for themselves. But Ruth wasn't going to just sit there and do nothing. Time skipped to the next day in the evening. A man named Boaz stops by his field to check on the harvest. Who does he find but Ruth, working tirelessly in the field? Seeing her at work, Boaz walks up to one of his workers and asks who the woman is. The servant responds in chapter 2, verse 6, "It's that Moabite that came back with Naomi. She asked if she could help out this morning and she's been working ever since." So it seems that our girl Ruth has been working all day without a break. And thank the Lord Almighty someone's finally acknowledged her. Boaz is amazed with her dedication. He approaches her and offers her some water, and she gets overwhelmed by his kindness. This girl literally falls on her knees in relief and despair. I mean, in all her time of being in Bethlehem, this is the first person that's been caring and kind to her, and she doesn't understand why he's being so nice. He praises her by saying, "I know who you are, and I know everything you've done to support your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. May the Lord reward your sacrifices." And with that, he invites her to dinner, where she ate until she was completely satisfied. Once dinner's over, he lets her go with all the wheat that she harvested that day. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good first date. So Ruth then hurries home to tell Naomi about everything that happened. And Naomi is shocked. She goes, "You worked for Boaz? Girl, that man is the next of kin. What are the chances?" So during this time, there was what was called a Levirate marriage. If possible, a widow would marry her brother-in-law, and the first child would be considered a legal descendant of her dead husband. Doing so would redeem the widow and her family. It didn't age well, but we'll ignore that. So anyway, when Ruth hears this, she tells Naomi that she is more than willing to marry this Boaz guy in order to save Naomi's reputation. Come on, Ruth, we all know you like him, okay? Filled with hope, Naomi instructs Ruth to visit Boaz at night and make her intentions clear. So that night, Ruth finds Boaz asleep in the field. She wakes him up and explains the situation, and Boaz calls her a virtuous woman, that this deed is far greater than the deed she had done prior. He tells her that there is technically someone before him that is next of kin, so he goes to arrange the marriage that night. Darn it, I was really rooting for them too. So the same night, Boaz meets with the next of kin outside the Bethlehem gate. He tells him that Naomi is going to sell her husband's land unless he redeems the family. At first, he's like, heck yeah, but then Boaz explains he needs to marry Ruth. Well, what do you know? It looks like Ruth is gonna marry Boaz after all. With that, two virtuous people are united. Eventually, Ruth bore a son and named him Obed. Naomi, the woman who thought God had abandoned her, held her grandson in her arms and wept with joy. The end. So why is Ruth one of my favorite female figures in scripture? Ruth was a pagan woman who came to faith in God on her own accord. She showed unshakable loyalty and boundless compassion for someone in need, and she worked exceptionally hard to provide for her mother-in-law in the face of adversity. She never let prejudice of the others drag her down, and her selfless actions restored a broken woman's faith. It's one of the many beautiful stories in the Old Testament of how God works through unexpected people. Even when he isn't directly mentioned, he is still woven through the story. I believe that we should all aspire to be like Ruth. We need to put our thoughts and prayers into action. We should seek to be courageous, loyal, hardworking, and selfless. And we should seek to put our trust in God fully. And that's why I love the story of Ruth. Don't you think it's kind of odd that her story's in the Bible? What do you mean? Like, it's a great story, sure, but the other books of the Old Testament are, about the prophets and the kings, and there's like wars and really epic miracles, and I don't know, she's just an average person. Like, why was her story so important and needed to be in there? Do you recall Obed, her son? Yeah. He is the father of Jesse, who became the father of someone even more important. You don't mean... That's right. Ruth sacrificed to follow God, to leave her home country, to live with her mother-in-law, to marry the next of kin. It led for her to become the great-grandmother of King David. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what stories you like in the comments below, and I'll consider making those in the future. Stay tuned for more content, and please like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoyed. I hope to see you in the next video. Ciao for now!